mean, from my own personal experiences, so I don't feel like these kind of conversations even happened when I was 8 years old or 9 years old, So what has changed in the last 20, 30 years? Now we're hearing about 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, talking about things, having assault cases. I've heard personal stories about these kind of things. There is a definite youth progress towards even younger. How is this happening across the board?
Availability, right? I think it goes back to a lot of that. I see it in my students as well. And that's the thing, right? Recently, we found out a case of a 12-year-old boy was sending inappropriate pictures to younger boys, 10-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And we only found out because the 10-year-old boy that we were teaching a lot of SEL reported to us. He said he felt so uncomfortable that this boy added him to a group and sent all these inappropriate pictures.
Not of himself, but of other girls
and
whatever.
it's forwarded images. So it's available out there. And we found out because this kid was taught this preventive way to know that this is inappropriate and reported it to us. And so then we can take action.
In an instance like that, what would action entail?
I believe more on restorative practices. Finding out from that boy, right, one, where do you get these pictures? What is your intention? Because a lot of times, if you really talk to the kid, this particular case, the kid's intention was to actually just to get people to like him. He thought it was cool to send pictures like this to
that would be
people.
my first guess, actually.
Yeah. And knowing that, the punishment is not so much like, oh, punish him for sending this. Is then one, setting that clear boundary that there's consequence and saying that no, you cannot, but also teaching them what other ways you can be cool with your friends, not this. Because if not, I will go and figure out myself. I will do something else that I think is cool. And it may be something even worse. Maybe they think next thing to be cool is vague. That's the next level, right? And that's worse.
So in the area of work that I do, right, like we talk about things like rape culture, for example, that can be very triggering. But also the idea of culture is that it doesn't start with the actual like sexual violence, It's the lower level things like normalizing jokes that are lewd in classes and using like inappropriate words.
Yeah.
And we think that those things are okay because ala sikit je, that kind of thing. And remember when Ain's case, like Ain Husniza, right? Like when she called out a teacher for saying what they said, the comments that came to her and the attacks, terrible. But that actually speaks the norms that we already have ingrained in our society at large.
And that's a national school, right? And if I think back on my own personal high school experience, I have seen that happening in my own school. Like calling names, inappropriate names that the teacher was calling to the student. But again, at that time, right, because I think you're not so exposed, you also don't know how to speak up. Not everyone's like I, right, where you feel like, okay, I'm brave enough to say. Sometimes you may just feel super uncomfortable and you don't know what to do. So it just goes unreported. And that's why I think there's that tendency to see like, oh, maybe international school nampak macam banyak of this case. But actually, if you really think back, and if you ask many high school, national school goers, more often than not, they've seen it. Just that, tak tahu macam mana nak buat apa.
Actually, when I was in standard 2, and I remember this incident so clearly because I went to an all-girls school. The teacher actually perpetrated an act of violence on some of my classmates.
Primary school?
In primary school, because the context was this, right? Like we had times table pop quiz, okay? So everybody had to stand up, the drill, right? Okay, you 2 times 4, like 6 times 3, whatever. And the people who didn't know the answer, the teacher just pulled down their kain baju kurung. It's an all-girls school, and it's a good all-girls school. And the teacher who perpetrated this was female herself.
Oh, boy.
This was 30 plus years ago.
And put on the pants and just leave them
And just
the whole day without pants. Or...
Less than that, she was a class teacher. This kind of violence went unchecked and like I said, underreported. And even for me, as someone who has worked in like gender and education, it didn't come up until I took a creative writing class. And then suddenly this like
Baru teringat.
Terima kasih kerana menonton Siapa Makan Cili.
Dan kalau korang ada siapa yang korang nak kita jemput ke show kita, sila tinggalkan di ruang komen di bawah.
Dan jangan lupa subscribe.
Jangan lupa.
Jangan lupa.